All right. Okay, so let's take a moment again as before just to make sure we're still following the explanations on the 12 links with the right kind of motivation to once again generate the aspiration or the determination for the sake of each and every sentient being. I'm determined to attain the fully awakened state of a Buddha, so that then I'll be able to work for the benefit of other sentient beings in the most effective way. And with this determination, we'll now follow Buddha's teachings on the 12 links. Okay. All right. Now, everything we've discussed so far, the question that, of course, is most important is how is this relevant to your own life? How does this affect you in your daily life? Because as I mentioned before, that's the goal of it, to bring this into our own life, if we choose to do so, of course. Just listening to it and studying it when we've got some time, that's nice, very nice, maybe effective, makes us feel good in the moment. But to really bring about changes in our own life. And what are those changes? Well, bringing more happiness, more satisfaction, more a sense of contentment and well-being into our own life. That is the goal of Buddhist practice. And of course, the emphasis is a lot on future lives, but actually the good thing, the side effects, the positive side effects of Buddhist practice are that they bring us great well-being in this life. It is possible, even in this lifetime, through Buddhist practice, to become happier. And in that sense also, I mean, that is the goal of Buddhism. It's not about increasing the numbers of Buddhists. I mean, the Buddha himself doesn't care. In fact, he doesn't encourage people to follow Buddhism if they don't feel it's the right kind of system for them. And I've mentioned this before on different occasions. In Buddhism, what's so important is taking refuge. But taking refuge, of course, doesn't mean I'm just worshiping the Dharma. Um, I'm kind of like a refugee who's like giving up everything and just now I follow the Dharma, I throw away my clothing and all that. Nothing of that sort. Really, in Buddhism, in Tibetan, the word refuge, to take refuge, is much more as in seeking protection or seeking, going towards being protected, which is really just saying whenever we have a problem, we seek protection. We seek a solution to our problem. That's what we naturally do. And even if it's not really a solution to the problem, we seek some relief, which may be that, well, if I don't feel good right now, I may, I don't know, eat something that I like to eat, call up a friend, talk to a friend about the problem or anything that distracts me from it. I may watch a movie. I may eat I had already eating, so chocolate, eat some chocolate, whatever. Just in any way to get rid of this problem. And that's okay. From a Buddhist point of view, it's not like you cannot do this. When you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, it's not like you cannot take refuge in the things that you ordinarily do. Which taking refuge means seeking relief from a particular problem, from whatever you seek refuge in. Now, here, on top of that, taking refuge means on top of that, take the Dharma, take Buddhist psychology, and check what does Buddhism offer? What is it in Buddhism that offers a solution to this problem? Is there something I can take from the different aspects of Buddhist psychology, the different methods that are described here? Anything to help me to deal with this problem, and ideally to get rid of this problem. And that way I take refuge. So I take refuge mainly in Buddhist psychology and indirectly in those who practice, well, in those who teach Buddhist psychology, which is the Buddha or the Buddhas, more than one Buddha, I mean, there are many Buddhas, or the Sangha, which is the community who also practices Buddhism. So I seek the solution in those. That is what it means to take refuge in a general sense. Okay, so it's nothing scary. Some people say, well, when you take refuge, you become a Buddhist. And people are so worried about sometimes like, oh, now I'm a Buddhist, I can't be anything else. But let's not forget emptiness. Let's not forget we're just applying the word Buddhist based on, well, we can decide to call someone a Buddhist when they take refuge, or when they become a monk or a nun, or when they realize emptiness. It's not in and of itself, there are no Buddhists. Inherently, there's no Buddhist. So, as a group, or maybe the Buddha himself or someone, um, determines now, okay, being a Buddhist means this, that, and the other. It doesn't make you more a Buddhist or less a Buddhist. If you apply the name to something, it's just applying this, like, what are we can apply it in any way we want, and there are different definitions actually given. So you have to understand the 5 seals of the Dharma, or you have to take refuge. It's different definitions are given. Usually the one that is described is once you take refuge. But then people are worried about taking refuge because they believe, oh, then I'm a Buddhist and I can't be anything else. Well, you can be anything you want. Taking refuge means you entrust yourself to the Dharma. And there are certain precepts that come along with it, but to be honest, a lot of people are not even aware of these precepts, and they don't even exclude taking refuge in a god. It's just misunderstood. You're not supposed to look for means to attain liberation from suffering in other means that cannot take you there. So to take refuge is fine, just not to seek a solution to lasting suffering, or suffering and the suffering of body and mind, in something that cannot relieve you from that. That is one of the precepts of taking refuge. But the point is really, if you can stick to it, if you can't stick to this in this way, if you really just seek Buddhist psychology, seek it to a means or something as a method to overcome your problem, that is taking refuge. And you can call yourself a Buddhist or not. Well, that's just the name given. As I said, it's not carved in stone. It's not like there's an intrinsic Buddhist anyway. And I can only just recommend it, that I personally believe, since I brought the Dharma into my life and I've learned to see things through a coarse understanding of karma and of impermanence and so forth, my life is definitely happier and more satisfied. And issues such as now Corona has in no way affected me negatively. I cannot say that I've suffered because of Corona even 1 second. Just because the Dharma provides means and methods to dealing with everyday problems. And I have problems, of course, but Corona is not one of them, in the sense that I don't have the same worry and anxiety that maybe my neighbors and my family experiences. Not that I tell them that, they don't know about that, but the Dharma has really helped me in every situation in my life, even when there are problems, to deal with them effectively. And I can only just recommend it as a very effective tool. Now, coming back to, if you apply the Dharma, if you choose to seek refuge or take refuge in that way by taking this into your life, what you've learned so far, how is this practical? So we need to always check which part of this is practical. Well, first of all, to become more aware of our misapprehension of reality, to make some time. And this is also something I'd like to share with you. Some of you have heard me say this in a different class, but I want to stress this again. It's a really beautiful advice, or actually a very beautiful description that one of my teachers, Geshe Kelsang, gave. And last Sunday I talked about it when he said how he studied the Dharma. He talked about how he studied the Dharma when he was not able to study properly. He couldn't study. He was in one of the greatest seats of studies in South India in Drepung Losaling, but because of his disease, has ever since he's 20 years old. Since the age of 20, he's been really sick, and his physical strength didn't allow him, or the lack of his physical strength didn't allow him um, to do the same, to follow the same course of study as the other monks. And so, for instance, he couldn't go to the debate. And when he studied Madhyamika, the middle way, he came up with a way to study it, which led to him becoming such an incredible student that other people didn't believe that he wasn't debating with the other monks, because his knowledge was equal, if not sometimes greater than some of the monks. And I was reminded right away, I was thinking, wow, right now, living in the West, if you live in the West, of course you can't study in the same way. So maybe his advice could be beneficial. So what did Geshe say? He said he didn't have the time, and well, he didn't have the time. No, he didn't have the energy to study the Dharma in all its details. So what he did was he took the main aspects of any topic he studied. He took the main points and he wrote them down. Now, of course, he received explanations in class. Now, okay, if you don't have a class, of course, there are online classes you can join. There are classes, of course, once the pandemic is over, you can join classes itself. Plus, there are books to read. So there's plenty of material around. Any topic you're interested in, you usually find material. Pick up the points that are most important, and you use your own intelligence. Which bits are most important to me right now, most relevant? And those are the nitty-gritty details. Sometimes you can just let go of them. You take the main points, and that's what Geshe did. He wrote them out. And then he sat down anywhere he could, and he had the problem. His problem was that he got too uptight when he studied, and right away he was unable. He talks about shortness of breath, and so he needed to be in a very relaxed environment. So sometimes he would just play music in his room, but that was slightly frowned upon by the older monks. Like, they didn't know what his situation was, and so sometimes he could do that, but sometimes they were not allowed to play music in their room. And anyway, he felt it was sometimes too claustrophobic. So instead of sitting in his room, he would go to the restaurant. Like, it's like a canteen kind of thing. Very uncomfortable, these monastic kind of, well, in Drepung, for instance, the kind of canteen there. Canteen, it's not like fluffy sofas that you sit in, it's just kind of wooden benches. But anyway, they were playing music and people were relaxed and just hanging out. And in that environment, in that relaxed environment, he would just kind of like, to others, he looked like he was daydreaming, but he would take the main points and reflect on them with a very relaxed mind. And in that way, deepen his understanding further and further. And so I was thinking, well, we can do that. I mean, analytical meditation does not require you to sit cross-legged and with a straight back in a position that you ordinarily don't sit in and you find uncomfortable. Now, if you can sit in that position for some time, it has its merits, but it's not absolutely required. Analytical meditation doesn't mean you have to sit straight and right. So many of the meditators, when they live in the mountains and so forth, they first want their mind to be relaxed and calm, and then they start very calmly reflecting on something. So to do the same, if you want to study the Dharma and you bring it into your own life, well, bring it into your own life means first you need to contemplate it, contemplate it deeper. So take your most favorite spot, your favorite spot, like maybe a couch, a sofa. Be relaxed. Take a topic that you've understood and start thinking about it. Go deeper into it. Try to understand it deeper. What does that mean? Maybe visualize you have to explain it to someone, and then it has to be clear to you, because you can't explain it to someone unless you have some understanding of it. And in that way, you gain a deeper understanding, which is what you need to do to actually bring it into your life and to internalize it. So that's just something you may find helpful. And in terms of what that would mean to you, well, what you learned about emptiness, what have you heard about emptiness, and what we talked about in terms of the misapprehension of reality. And then think about, does it make sense? If I have a strong sense of an I, of a solid sense of an I, does that really give rise to attachment to myself? Is that really true? Is there a sense I'm thinking of myself as more precious and my happiness is more precious? Are there occasions in life? Can I, in fact, observe this in every moment of my life? Am I doing everything in my life in order to satisfy this attachment, this yearning for the well being of this I and that which is mine? And check whether that's true. Am I helping others because I just want to help them unconditionally, or do it because they're my friends, my family, my kids, and so forth? That's one step. And then how do other afflictions arise from that? I mean, your own mind is your own life is your own petri dish. Analyze, be like a scientist analyzing, is it true what the Buddha said? Is all this true? And really check. And once you come to this conclusion, well, it makes sense that also your actions have consequences. It's so obvious how cause and effect are active in your mind when you think of ignorance giving rise to attachment to the self, giving rise to other afflictive emotions, giving rise to actions of body, speech, and mind. Well, and then having experiences that only I have. Sometimes other people don't have the experience. Everyone is happy with the situation, and I'm the only one miserable, or the other way around. Well, what is it if that is not a karmic experience, a very personal experience? So, in that way, what I become aware of, so what is relevant in this context, I need to watch my actions. I need to watch my mind. I need to watch what am I putting into my mind, as in, like, what am I allowing myself to do? If there's great anger, do I apply an antidote or allow my anger to just run wild? If I'm envious, do I allow this envy to go on and feel miserable, or do I let it go through applying the antidotes, and so forth? And even further than that, understand that I am the creator of my future. I'm totally responsible. It's like ordering something from Amazon. I can check exactly, I want this, I don't want this. Take a filter, color, da da da, and so forth. You see what I've become familiar with? Ordering things in that way. What experience do I want? I want certain experiences. I want this and not this, and so forth. It's the power of the mind. First of all, wishing for something to happen and then creating the causes and conditions for that. There's no way you won't experience that. No way. And the power of the mind becomes really obvious to me, especially now with people dying. I told you there were two people who both died on their favorite day of the year. I don't know whether it's coincidence. We discussed this yesterday when I went to the funeral. This lady who passed away, her favorite day was the day of Saint Nicholas. It's like the 6th of December, because her husband's name was Nicholas. And she died actually on the 6th of December, which I didn't realize. And then we were talking about this during the funeral, and another lady said, well, my mother only wanted to turn 70. She only wished for that. And she died on her 70th birthday. And I was thinking, those are just ordinary people, but they had this wish to die on a specific day. Another person died, and he died on the day of All Saints. That was his favorite day of the year. I went to see him before he died just a few weeks ago. He died on the All Saints Day. It's just a special Christian day. Anyway, I mean, they all died on special days, and we hear about the lamas dying on special days all the time. So we can actually, if we have a determination and we wish for something, it becomes true if you wish for it long enough, and of course create certain causes and conditions. But in that case, it seemed just the wish was sufficient. So if we understand this, the power of the mind, wow, you're the creator of your own experiences. That is so powerful. It's in your own hand. But for that, you need to take control. You need to take control of your own mind, of your own emotions to the best of your ability. And that's only possible through mindfulness. Be mindful. What is your mind thinking? What emotion is going on? If it's there, apply the antidote. Well, don't apply it. If you like to suffer, okay, don't apply it. Just let it run wild. You feel miserable in the moment and you'll feel miserable in the future. If you don't want to feel that way, just apply the antidote. Just be creative about how you go about it to not create certain negative actions. But if you want to really purify your mind, if you really want to eliminate negative aspects that are already negative imprints on your mind, well, what we're studying right now is the path that is common to a person of middling capacity. It is common to that person, which is another way of saying, well, we're actually following the Mahayana, but the foundation of the Mahayana are the practices of a person of lower spiritual capacity and middling spiritual capacity. So here we're talking about the 12 links, which is another way of describing how to liberate ourselves from samsara, which as part of the Lamrim teachings is part of the middling section, which is the section of a person of middling spiritual capacity. But we're following these with the Mahayana motivation. And we started with this motivation. So to work on our Mahayana motivation, to work for the benefit of all sentient beings, however fake it is. If you just make yourself think that, however fake it is, it has a positive influence on your mind. And the more you do it, the more you develop this habit. And once you develop a habit, it becomes more and more natural, and you start feeling it more and more. Of course, you need to do the meditations again and again. Think of other sentient beings suffering, equalize it, exchange yourself with others. There's certain steps, but they can easily do them on your sofa, on your favorite sofa. If you don't want to meditate, if you want to meditate, great. But if you can't do this for long periods of time, well, leave the meditation cushion. Do it while you're sitting in your favorite spot and develop more love and compassion. And in that way, you are safe. You couldn't be any safer. The more love and compassion, and in particular, the stronger your sense, I want to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. As part of my Sunday class, I ask people to set an app to develop bodhicitta 10 times a day, 20 times a day. You're in the middle of the supermarket shopping, your alarm goes off, just take a moment, generate bodhicitta for the welfare of all the cashier and the people around you and the people in the supermarket and the people everywhere in your country and in the whole world. Just take that moment. You can do so much in a moment just mentally. And then again, set your app. Do it when you're having dinner, whenever, when you're driving. I mean, we're usually surrounded by people, and even if we're not surrounded by people, generate that mind. That is the most effective way to purify negative karmic imprints and plant positive ones. So if you've learned, what we've learned so far is exactly that. So I want to bring in bodhicitta. Of course, that's the essence of the path, plus emptiness. And we've already mentioned that as part of dealing with ignorance. Okay. Now, before we start the next meditation, I've already I've already brought in this step. Well, first, what I said so far, ignorance giving rise to formative actions with lots of other emotions in between, afflictive emotions in between, giving rise to formative actions, virtues or non-virtues, but still influenced by at least attachment, then giving rise to or being left this karmic seed that has been created now being left on the mind. Okay, this far we got. And then you've heard that for this karmic seed to ripen in general, in particular when it comes to a mental karma, you need attachment to the self, attachment to the I, and you need the root misapprehension of reality, which means, in other words, if you've removed the misapprehension of reality and therefore have removed attachment, karma, mental karma can no longer ripen. Mental karma can no longer ripen, only physical karma. And even that is just associated with the body's certain sensations that mentally you don't even perceive as negative. There's no fear of pain and so forth. They're just experiences, there's just sensations, but there's no longer a mental interpretation, this is suffering. So you no longer suffer, in other words. Therefore, the body can still get sick, but it's not interpreted as sickness. Therefore, as an arhat, you can no longer experience suffering, in that suffering is that mental experience, and that is no longer there, which means you need to have attachment for these karmic seeds to ripen. These karmic seeds, these suffering seeds. And in particular, when it comes to being reborn in samsara, which happens due to a karmic seed only if there's attachment to the I, which of course, I'm repeating it again, when we die, what happens when we die ordinarily? There's this natural response of holding on to I don't want to go out of existence. And therefore, what happens is a karmic seed naturally ripens and naturally gives rise to a rebirth. However, what's important when we die, what's very important is that we have a peaceful mind, a peaceful type of mind, like a mind remembering love, compassion. That is the best type to die. If you remember bodhicitta, you don't need power. You don't need any kind of fancy ritual. Geshe Kelsang once talked about it, that his father talked always about his father being a follower of the Nyingma tradition. He talked always about the importance of power and so forth. And he actually, after having studied the Dharma, practiced the Dharma, he always recommended his fathers and others, you don't need power if you have bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the greatest protection. If you die with the mind of bodhicitta, you don't need power. You don't need any rituals. You're the most protected. Of course, they can't harm, but the best way to die is generate bodhicitta. And the best way to generate bodhicitta when you die is generating it in your life right now. You develop a habit. Okay. We heard about habits before. Now, that is just the way to die. And then that way, even if you still have attachment and you still be reborn in samsara, well, you be then you're it's very likely that although you have grasping and you have attachment, which will lead to the ripening of a seed, but because of bodhicitta, it was there a moment ago, and there's an imprint left in that moment once again. And that very fresh imprint that you've had when you were still conscious, when you still were conscious and you could generate bodhicitta, it's actually on a less conscious level that this attachment automatically arises. Well, this just previously accumulated or generated bodhicitta, mind of bodhicitta, now together with your grasping, you are very likely to be reborn in a higher state. Therefore, although you have attachment, you can't help it. That's not the time to meditate on emptiness. You can meditate on emptiness, but only as long as your mind is coarse enough that you can still control it. When the more uncontrolled state arises, because your mind grows subtler, attachment will be there, grasping will be there, not on the subtlest level, but on a slightly subtler level, and you can't control that. So as long as you have more control, you need to meditate on these aspects, and you're safe. You're pretty safe. But to do that, you need to live your whole life such that you can generate these minds. So your entire life need to be influenced in that way that you observe your actions to accumulate less negative actions, have less of a habit to accumulate negative actions, and of course to habituate yourself to bodhicitta and so forth. So this is, I think, the lesson you can take from what you learned so far. And before we go into the other links, this is the essence of the 12 links. If you don't understand the rest, this is what you can understand. And we'll meditate on this now to deepen your understanding. In particular, we've done the fast meditation on these steps leading to the karmic seed. And now we'll look at the karmic seed towards the end of your life, just deepening our understanding of that. And as I've done before, we'll do some analysis of that, the steps that happen at the time of death, not in all its details, but some of what happens in terms of craving or attachment to the I, like well, craving means attachment of the I leading to craving in that I want to exist. And then that craving grows stronger and it becomes grasping. So previously I used the word just attachment, but it's actually craving and then grasping and then giving rise to the germination, to the ripening of this karmic seed. Okay, so we analyze this. And when I tell you to do so, I'll ask you that after the analysis, whatever insight, whatever conclusion you've come to focus on that, just one pointedly, to allow for your insight to go deeper. Okay. Previously, I've already mentioned that during the meditation. Now I'll stress it even more that you do it that way. And now let's start meditating, taking a few moments to just watch the breath, and then I guide you through the meditation. And now take a moment to turn inwards, to become aware of your own mental consciousness as much as possible. And try to become aware of the fact that your mind is the basis of countless residues or imprints you've left on your mind on different occasions. All of them induced by a misapprehension of reality and other afflictions such as attachment, which gave rise to actions of body, speech, and mind. Leaving behind different imprints on your mental consciousness. Virtuous imprints, non-virtuous ones, and of course, many, many neutral ones. And the most powerful of all these residues that have become part of your mind are the virtuous and the non-virtuous ones. In terms of their causes and in terms of their results, they're much more powerful than the neutral ones. And among all those virtuous and non-virtuous karmic imprints, there are those that are described as throwing karmic imprints. That have the potential to project you or throw you and of one of the different realms of existence. Hellish realm, Preta realm, the animal realm, the human or the celestial realm. All the result of volitional actions motivated by your own mind. By a mental consciousness sometime in the past. They don't just disappear, but remain with your mental consciousness up to the moment of death in this life. Which, of course, is the one thing that is certain in life, our own death. With death being just another name for the moment when our consciousness separates from our body. Which, no matter how sudden our death may be, is always preceded by a time when our ordinary coarse mind grows subtler. And during that time, there's a sense we're disappearing, since the mind is aware of this process of mind and body separating. And due to its habit, the mind will automatically generate attachment to the I, attachment to existence, craving for existence, craving to continue to exist. And even stronger, grasping at the I and the existence of the I. So first there's craving for the existence of the I, and then there's grasping, even stronger, grasping at the existence of the I. And these states of mind are the conditions that now lead to the ripening of one of the karmic seeds that determine our rebirth, that lead to the ripening of one of those seeds. Similar to an apple seed, for instance, that while it previously existed just as an ordinary seed, the moment you plant it in the earth, the right kind of warmth, some water, the seed starts to germinate or to ripen. This also happens at the time of our own death. The death process gives rise to craving and grasping at the existence of the I, which in turn cause a throwing karmic seed to ripen. And as long as we haven't reached liberation, as long as we haven't eliminated the root of cycle existence, the misapprehension of the I and other phenomena, there's nothing we can do to stop this process. However, we can learn to influence it in a positive way. to generate a positive state of mind, as long as we still can control it. Ideally, great compassion, or even better, bodhicitta. Combined with a reflection on emptiness, as far as our understanding of emptiness goes. Therefore, we can not stop that process, but we can control it in that through this virtuous state of mind. Cause a positive throwing karmic imprint to ripen and result ideally in a rebirth as with a precious human body. Therefore, the best way to prepare for death, which means for the ripening of a positive throwing karmic seed, is to habituate ourselves to virtuous states of mind. On a daily basis. Making an understanding of emptiness and bodhicitta the center of our life. So now, whatever insight, whatever conclusion you've come to as a result of this reflection, spend a few moments to concentrate on that single pointedly. And allow it to sink deeper into your mind. Okay. Now, if you rise from your meditation, okay. So we have half an hour more, and now I'd like to introduce you to the other links. If we could have the chart again, the chart with the 12 links, not the Wheel of Life, but the actual chart. Yeah, we had yesterday. Exactly, that's the one. Okay. Now, I believe so far it's not that complicated. You've understood link number 1, 2, and 3. Maybe 3 is still a little bit difficult, but actually 3 is just saying, link number 3 is just saying consciousness. Here, 3a is the causal consciousness, which means the moment this action of body, speech, and mind has been performed, and here we're saying a powerful one, either powerfully virtuous or non-virtuous, which now, once the action is over, leaves a karmic imprint on the mind. And then that mind is now the mind. The mind previously, of course, was there, but now it's the mind that holds this imprint. Okay, and that's number 3. It's the imprint was left on the mind, and now it's the mind that holds that imprint. That is number 3. Number 3a, I should say, number 3a. And now we could easily go and say, well, then at the time of death, there is, oh, here it's called attachment. Sometimes it's called craving, sometimes attachment, different words are used. Anyway, attachment, let's use the word attachment number 8. When you're about to die, there's attachment to I and attachment to existence of the I. It leads to grasping, which is even stronger, number 9. And the karmic seed ripens, which is now, it's fully ripened, number 10. The seed is totally ripened. And a moment later, when the mind has left the body, and then there's a in between, the mind leaves the body, and then that karmic seed causes an in between state, the pardo, as well as birth in samsara again, as an animal or a human being or something else. Okay. Now, this process is not that hard to understand, and we go over it again. We've got another 2 days next week. But now, how do we get from 3A, causal consciousness, 3A, to 3B? Why take that step? It can be simply described the way I just described it. You go from 3A right away to attachment, grasping, and existence. That is from the point of view of one life, as in, let's say I create a very powerful negative karma that causes me to be reborn, I don't know, as some animal. It's not as powerful as the karma that throws me into a hellish kind of experience. However, it causes me to be, well, reborn as an animal. So it's still a non-virtuous karma that has the potential to determine my next birth. If the conditions at my death in this lifetime, exactly where you see the little hand, this is the end of this life. So if the conditions are such that when I die, my mind is not a virtuous type of mind, it's disrupted, whatever, maybe I have greed or whatever is really my last state of mind, then that can, not necessarily, I mean, it's not saying that it's always like that. It's very hard to determine, but it's very likely if there's a negative state of mind, that in this case, a negative kind of imprint. So take the example, it could be this karma that accumulated to be reborn as an animal, that it ripens, and because of attachment and grasping and the other state of mind that is there anyway when I die, and that then gives rise to birth in the next life as an animal. But here the depiction of the 12 links, or the explanation of the 12 links, does not describe this easiest case. Why not? Because if you understand the more difficult scenario, the other scenario is easy to understand. The easier one is easy to understand. But I explained that one first so you understand the main principle. Now, what is possible is that you die with this imprint on your mind, and this imprint remains with you without ripening. Some other imprint ripens, and we're not following the other imprint. We're following a specific imprint. If we continue with the animal rebirth, I, for instance, accumulated, I don't know, whenever that was, let's say today, I accumulate the karma very powerful of many other karmas I accumulate all the time, but we're following just a particular one. Now, I accumulate the karma to be reborn as an animal. I did something, I don't know, I was especially greedy. I acted similar to some greedy animal, but volitionally and with my full intention as a human being. I don't know what exactly creates a karma as a human being, so it's really hard to determine, but it's something non-virtuous. And since I'm not choosing the hellish kind of experience, because that's still too strange to us, so I choose an animal birth. Okay, I've accumulated this action. The action is completed. I left an imprint on my mind, the causal consciousness. That is 3A. Okay. And I live the rest of my life and I do whatever I do, but I'm not interested in anything else, anything here in this explanation of the 12 links other than this imprint. And this imprint is in no way affected until the rest of this life. It just sits there quietly doing what it does, being an imprint, being a karmic imprint. That's all. Nothing happens. Nothing happens to it when I die in this lifetime unless I purify it. But this case scenario is where I don't purify the karma. I don't. I'm not touching it in any way. It just remains there. So no need to mention it any further as part of this lifetime. And so you see this line there, okay? The line is when I die and I'm reborn in a different life due to some totally different imprint, which is not mentioned here because we're not following this other imprint. And now I'm reborn with a new type of mind in a human experience. I'm now reborn again as a human being due to some other karma, but I'm still following the karmic imprint for rebirth in the animal realm. And now I have a new type of consciousness, which is now the second birth as a human being. Okay, yes, very good. That's the resultant consciousness. In other words, where is the karmic seed? Well, it's still with the consciousness. So just to stress that, it's still with the mind. I've taken a new birth where the previous human mind gave rise to the human mind of a new human existence in this lifetime, and the karmic seed is still there. Okay, this is why you have 3B. Actually, you can just take it as one instead of saying A and B, just say consciousness. But that's clearer. It's clearer that, okay, there's a death in between, and there's the seed still remains with the consciousness that was there in the previous life, and it's now there with the mental consciousness, even now with the mental consciousness, not of course with the sense consciousnesses. Okay, so far I think it's pretty clear. And now the question arises, why do I have name and form? And why do I have the six senses? And why do I have contact? And why do I have feeling? Those four. How do they come in there? How random. I know attachment, I know grasping, but why do I have these 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4, name and form, 5, 6 sense sources, contact and feeling. So random that they suddenly appear. Well, it's just important you understand the purpose of those. What is the purpose of those? In order for this seed that is still lying there, okay? It's still lying there, okay? So the whole time it's there. But in order for the seed to ripen, of course, I've mentioned number 8, attachment, and number 9, grasping. I know I need those for the seed that continues to be there at some point when I'm dying to arise. But for that, I need name and form, 6 sense sources, contact, and feeling. So, in other words, number 4, name and form, number 5, 6 sense sources, number 6, contact, and number 7, feeling. They explain how I can actually have attachment and grasping. Besides the fact, of course, I have ignorance in the first place, of course, but only ignorance is not enough for me to have attachment and grasping. I need more than that. This attachment and grasping, in particular at the time of death. What do I need for that? What do I need for this attachment and grasping? For attachment and grasping in general, but more particularly for attachment and grasping towards the time of death as a human being. Okay. Or even as an animal. Okay. I mean, as just a being of samsara, we're talking mainly from the human realm here. I'm a human being right now. And only in the future I'll be reborn as an animal because I'm following this karmic seed that propels me into an animal rebirth. Now, what do I need? At least I need a body. I need to have mind and body. Okay. Then I need to make contact with the external world. I need to make contact with I need to have something that allows me to make contact with the external world, then have contact with the external world, which leads to feeling, and only then attachment and grasping can arise. Of course, ignorance is the main cause, but I need other factors as well. So, what am I doing, therefore, when I go back to the resultant consciousness? Resultant consciousness, from there, I'm actually now taking like a fast forward through my life until the end of my life, and that's 8 and 9. It's almost like a fast forward. I go very quickly. It's like resultant consciousness. Okay, it's the first moment of the moment of conception. Let's put it that way. The moment of conception. That is the resultant consciousness. So it's in other words, it's telling us, look, the karmic seed is still there. Its nature is such that it remains with the mind, and even if such a dramatic change such as a new life happens, well, the body's different, the mind manifests slightly differently, of course, because it has a different body, but the karmic seed, that remains there. And now for this karmic seed to ripen, I need attachment and grasping, but in between, besides the basic ignorance that I have anyway, besides that, I need to, of course, generate an understanding that I'm dying, for instance. Okay? I need to generate, because I'm fast forwarding towards death with attachment and grasping. This is when it ripens. But in order for that, I need to have a feeling, the feeling pleasant or unpleasant, or at least that I'm dying, right? And usually that's an unpleasant experience, which then gives rise to attachment and so forth. The feeling of I want to exist. But such a feeling can only arise if I make contact with the external world, making contact with my body, which is external. I make contact with what is happening. For instance, when I'm dying, what is happening? I have to make contact. How do I make contact with that? With the 6 senses. Okay, I need the 6 senses. I need to, well, when you die, there's a process, there's something happening on a physical level. Your body behaves in a certain way. If you die in an accident, I mean, you're aware there's something happening there. So the 6 senses have to be there. And before that, you need to have the 6 sense sources. You need to have a basis before they become active. You need to have the sources. And when are those sources? They're actually in your womb, in the womb of a mother. So you must have been in the womb of a mother to have the sources of the 6 senses. And that is only possible if you have a mind and body. If you have a mind and body, and that's name and form. So really, this is a really bizarre way to go from 4 to 8, in where you kind of saying, well, you have this mental consciousness that holds the seat, but now to get to 8, well, you need to have a body, mind and body, the 5 aggregates. Okay, mind was already mentioned as the resultant consciousness, but it was actually only mentioned from the point of view of being the basis for the karmic seat. Okay, still holding the karmic seat. But now name and form, as name being the mental aggregates, including, of course, the consciousness that holds the seat, but also the mental factors and anything that is not the body, in other words. So that's name and form. You have to have this whole entity of having 5 aggregates, because without both body and mind, you cannot perceive the things around you. You cannot be aware of your environment. Okay, so you have name and form. When do you have these name and form? Well, in the womb. The moment here, this is the name and form. This is the name and form before your 6 senses. What are the 6 senses? What are the 6 senses actually? They're called the 6 sense spheres, actually. The 6 sense spheres. What are they described? What are they? Well, your eye sense sphere. In other words, on the physical level, what do you need to be able to see things with your eye consciousness, to see things? It's not the eyes that see something, it's your eye consciousness, strictly speaking. It's not your eyes. Your eyes are parts of your eyes are the eye sense power, or the eye sense sphere, which is what is necessary on the physical level for you to see something. Okay, that's the eye sense sphere. And then you have the ear sense sphere. So for things to see, okay, you see this, you need on the physical basis, whatever it is with the eye, it's the retina, it's the optical nerve and so forth. For the experience of hearing things, well, you need whatever is in the ear, certain aspects like the eardrums, the receptors in the ear, the nerve that takes to the brain, the part of the brain, the cortex that is responsible, the visual, no, the auditory cortex and so forth. All these physical aspects are needed. And then once you have those, you can have an ear consciousness, hearing something. So you can go like that all the way through the 5 sense consciousnesses, plus the mental consciousness, of course, as well. You need all of those, and you need the causes. You need to have that which gives rise to them, and after you have name and form, so the resultant consciousness holding the seed, right? And that's just the consciousness, the first moment, basically, when you conceive, when you enter this, it's the consciousness that enters the it's the consciousness in the pardo. The resultant consciousness is the consciousness in the pardo that holds the seed. It's the consciousness that is now in the process of entering the fertilized egg. It's the fertilized egg. Can we go back to the picture, please? Sorry. The fertilized egg. I need that chart again. So until then, so the moment you've entered the fertilized egg, then you have name and form. That is the moment of name and form. Now you have a body. It's just an egg, but it's a body. It's the best you get in the first moment. It's that fertilized egg that now starts to divide. Okay, it's said that because of the mind and because of the karmic force, not the karmic seed that is still there with that we're watching. No, that karmic seed is not active at all. But due to the karma that threw you, a different karma that threw me, in this case me, in this lifetime, this is now responsible for the cell, the fertilized cell, to start dividing. It divides in a certain way. It's that karma and other karmas that are also now ripening, not the karmic seed that throws me into the animal birth. That's still lying there dormant. But lots of other karmas now ripening, being responsible for the cells of the fertilized egg to combined, of course, fertilized. I'm saying the semen of the father and the fertilized egg of the mother. Now with the consciousness, now it starts dividing in a certain way. So from a Buddhist point of view, what do you call these stem cells? Right? There's a huge mystery in science that stem cells divide in a certain way, and some stem cells become part of the kidney, and they become kidney cells, and some become lung cells. From a Buddhist point of view, that is the karma ripening, karmic imprints ripening as part of now having this mind in this new existence, ripening in such a way that the body forms in a particular way. And because everyone has an individually different karma, it develops differently, even for identical twins. Identical twins are their DNA, their genetic material is only identical at the moment of conception. When, if they're identical, if they're just, well, if there's two of them, they're not triplets, but they're identical twins. And identical, that's the point. When the fertilized cell, when it separates into two, that is the moment, only at that moment, when the consciousness has entered at the moment of conception, then the DNA is identical. But scientists have found out that the moment this process of now the two fertilized eggs are starting to split, the DNA starts being different. And that is totally in accordance with the Buddhist idea that two different minds have entered this now double fertilized cell, because it had split into two, and because with each of those two split cells now, because there's a different mind has entered them and different karma, therefore they now develop it differently, and the DNA, even the DNA changes, determined by the karma of these two individual minds of these identical twins. So they're no longer identical. Science has said that, and from a Buddhist point of view, that totally accords with Buddhism, where it is explained our body develops according to our karma, and that is different from person to person. So here science goes really well with this Buddhist idea. Now, this process of name and form, it only lasts as long as the six sense spheres are almost ready. It's not even saying, it's not saying they're ready yet, because then you would have contact. So it's saying there is a time in the womb still, when this process, of course, is underway of the body now changing according to the person's karma. So going back to me as myself, as the example, as a human being without a twin. Okay, so I just pointed out with the twin that the fact that the body changes in a particular way, even the DNA is determined by the karma of the person. Completing karma. The throwing karma was only responsible for me to be born as a human, or being conceived at least as a human being. It's all in the womb right now. However, the completing karma, that I have plenty of them. It's all these imprints, and again, they're not physical, so it's not like I'm overcrowded. It's just all this potential that's in the mind that's now ripening in such a way that my body forms until the moment I'm about to complete the six senses. When the six senses are ready, I can actually now make complete contact with the world around me. Okay, so the six sense sources, as number 5, is just saying that is this process just before you're actually able to make sense or to make contact with everything else around you. Okay, now this is where it's complicated. I'm saying name and form is just saying this is where you're developing your body in such a way that at some point you can make contact through your six senses with the world. This is this process. And six sense sources is the moment when you're about to be able to make contact with the world. Okay. And then number 6 is your six sense spheres. Like now the sixth sense powers, they're no longer sources, they're called powers. Now you can make contact. You can make contact with all your six senses, with the world around you. You're fully able to fully perceive the world around you. Okay. And every time there's contact, there's feeling. Every time there's contact, it gives rise to some type of feeling. There's an emotional response. There's a response, and here we're mainly interested in the response of feeling, positive or negative, and so forth. And that gives rise to, well, attachment, anger, and other afflictive emotions. So you can put in a lot of other aspects in between, which don't need to be mentioned here. We still are interested in what we need for attachment and grasping to take place at the moment of death, which is why we don't need to go into those details. But those details, of course, are there. Those details are actually there. So, in other words, we were born, we were conceived holding the seed. And then, well, in my case, if I take myself as the example, my consciousness was thrown into a new existence, still holding the seed. 3B, the resultant consciousness. And then conception had taken place. So now there is a body, there's a mind. That's number 4. Now I'm getting ready to make contact with the things around me, to become aware of myself and the environment, myself, the body, and so forth. But that can only take place if I have the six sense powers. Okay. For that, I need the six sense sources first. This moment just before they start working. And once they start working, I have contact. I can make contact. And contact, of course, gives rise to feeling. And if it's a positive feeling, it usually gives rise to attachment because, of course, I still have ignorance. If it's a negative feeling, it gives rise to anger because, well, yeah, anger towards whatever it is negative. And if it's a neutral feeling, well, it doesn't induce attachment or anger, but ignorance can still work really, really well. Okay. And in that way, that's really now the first steps. No, sorry, 4 and 5, they're in the womb. 4 and 5 are in the womb. Just saying, look, this is what needs to develop, that then you can make contact and you have feeling and you have all sorts of emotional responses, and that is your life. That is your life. So really 6 and 7 describe your life. 4 and 5 are in the womb. 6 and 7 is from the womb onwards, birth. And then in each moment, once you have all these feelings and you have emotional responses, and they're just really roughly put together, and you could add those as 7A and 7B and 7.3 and, well, like for 6A, 6B, but not necessary. It's all included in there, but it becomes too complicated. Therefore, we just say simply contact, feeling. Okay? Contact with objects, feeling. And then, of course, at the time of death, okay, what happens at the time of death? There's attachment, there's grasping, because what are we aware of? Because of the six sense sources, because perceiving what's going on around us, myself in relation to my body, in relation to the people around me. Now, let's say I'm lying there dying, I'm about to die, and I'm aware of my death, other people, the way they react, what the doctors tell me, my body. I'm visualizing the ideal case of dying slowly. I mean, even if I die in an accident, everything happens very quickly. But it's easier to explain it and it's easier to be aware of it anyway if it's a slow process. So I'm describing a slow death. Okay, again, contact and feeling, of course, take place, but this time is the feeling negative and I'm dying. The feeling I'm dying. Oh my God. I don't want to die. I want to exist. So it's this attachment to the I, and it's this attachment to existence, which sometimes is called craving. Here's the word attachment. It's craving, it's attachment. It's kind of like a strong type of attachment, which even stronger turns into grasping. And that is only that type you only experience at the time of death, which means it's really this process, it's irrevocable, that no way you can actually come back. It's that kind where your mind is this process is so strong that this will now lead to the ripening of a new seed, of the ripening. In my case, it's an animal seed. So we followed it all the way. It was there. It was not affected by anything, not by name and form, not by six sense sources. It just lay with the consciousness the whole time. And now, for the first time, because of attachment and grasping and other circumstances that were responsible for the type of mind I had before I died, now they lead to the ripening of this karmic seed. For the first time, this karmic seed is actually moving. It's actually something is happening to it. Something is happening to it, which now means it starts to germinate. Just as when you have an actual seed that you plant in the ground, previously it was tiny, it was small, and now it starts growing bigger. It kind of blows up. It blows up and that's what's called germination. And at some point you can't stop this process of just giving rise to a seedling. So right, likewise here, well, maybe in the case of an actual seedling you can still, I don't know, destroy it, throw it in fire or something. But in the case of this kind of karmic seed, once it's germinated, you cannot go back. It's like you will be reborn. There's nothing you can do. Even if hypothetically, well, you can't achieve liberation in that state in between anyway. But the point is, like, it'll definitely ripen. You can achieve liberation in the pardo, but that means the karma has already ripened, having already given rise to this pardo. So at least the pardo has taken place, even if then you no longer take birth. But that's a very rare case. So the point is that once it's ripened, it will at least give rise to the pardo, and if you're not really highly evolved, it will definitely give birth again somewhere in samsara. Okay, now you see the last three are not that difficult. With number 10, existence, it's just saying, well, now the potential for existence is there. You're not existing in a new birth yet. I'm not existing as that animal yet, but it's there in its potential form. Okay. So I'm actually giving the name of the result, the existence as an animal, to the cause. It's not really existence as animal yet, but I already call it that. So that is when the karmic seed ripens, because of number 8, craving or strong attachment, and number 9, grasping. Okay. But the other ones here, number 4 and 5, they're just telling me what needs to happen in the womb and what then, and we're still here. This is totally based on human existence. The 12 links are described, especially 4, 5, 6, and so forth, human or animal, those two possibilities. So 4 and 5, and even if one of the 6 senses don't work, well, 5 would also do it, but 6 is like the ideal case. It's like if all your 6 senses are working. So this is what you need to make contact, and once there's contact, your entire life will be about making contact with an object and then having an emotional response, feeling something, giving rise to attachment and so forth. And I can see there are lots of questions. This is the 12 links. Okay, let's take a break now. Yeah, let's take a break. We'll have half an hour break. Am I right about taking a break now? Is this the right time? Yes. Okay, great. We'll start with a meditation on this to deepen your understanding, and it's just a reflection on it, just to deepen these points. And I'll also read your questions in the meantime. All right, so let's take a break if these are questions. No, they're not questions. No, it's only Hebrew. Well, if there are questions, I can't read them. So you're welcome to post questions if you've got any. I'm just going to sign off for half an hour.
It was in Hebrew. People were asking about the text and were told that it's in the website, so it's okay.
Ah, okay. And Barda very beautifully prepared it. Okay, great. Thank
you. Tammy had a question before that maybe Tammy, you want to question it again?
Well, not now. Let's wait until after. We'll take a break. Then we have a meditation, and then Tammy can ask her question. Okay? Tammy? Yes. Great. Thank you.